Hello, and for the final time this domestic season, welcome to Go Ballistic here on the Scottish Sun's Sports YouTube channel. And Roger Hannah, what a finish to the domestic season. Dramatic Scottish Cup final at Hampden. Everyone thinking Celtic were going to go in, cruise to the treble. That was the narrative going in. Nobody giving Aberdeen a chance in hell. Aberdeen have ended up with the cup. What did you make of it?
Somebody said to me a couple of weeks ago, Jonathan, they were giving Aberdeen a 1% chance of winning the final. And at that stage, I couldn't really argue. I mean, the finish of the season, I think, with 4 straight league defeats. Celtic, runaway champions, already got the Premier Sports Cup in the bag. They were going for another treble. I just couldn't believe it. I mean, when Celtic took the lead in the first half, the unfortunate own goal from Alfie Dorrington, you just expect them to kick on because they had done it against Aberdeen so often. 6 in the semi-final before at Hampden, 5-1, 5-1 the last 2 meetings of the side. You just expected them to kick on, and they didn't. And Aberdeen with a new formation hung in there. They got a break with the Kasper Schmeichel own goal. They held themselves together. They looked out on their feet, some of them towards the end of extra time.
Sure, yeah.
But the penalties are as good as I've ever seen.
Cracking
penalty
kicks,
shooting.
weren't they?
Fantastic. It's not a lottery. It's down to skill as well. And Dimitar Mitov's emerged as a hero.
He did indeed. Now, you know, we've stood in here many times and kind of talked about Aberdeen's strange season. You know, that incredible start they had, you know, gunning for the title, people thought, after a certain number of games. Then that horrendous spell in the middle. They've got rid of that. Maybe didn't finish the league season as they wanted to, as you've mentioned. But now they've won the cup. They're going to go into Europe. They're guaranteed group stage football. Yeah. They're entering at a later stage now, obviously bumping Hibs down as well. So, I mean, a strange season, I think, is still very apt, but a good one in the end.
You could almost describe them as the Tottenham Hotspur of Scotland, you know. I mean, league-wise, the season just fell away. People talked about splitting the Old Firm and they finished 5th behind Dundee United. That's not good enough in the budget that they've got up there. But they've saved the whole season with that cup final win. The first in 35 years. The scenes at the parade down Union Street yesterday were absolutely terrific. Well done, Jimmy Tilleen. Well done, the players. Well done, Dave Cormack and Stephen Gunn, for going and getting Jimmy Tilleen. Talk about Spurs. I'm still not convinced Big Ange will still be a Spurs manager next season because of the league form. Jimmy Tilleen now is nailed on to stay at Aberdeen for a period of time.
For sure, and as you say, incredible celebrations. That's Aberdeen kind of banished the big hoodoo that was over their head, finally getting that Scottish Cup. They've now done that. Looking ahead to next season, what will they be looking to build on? What does success actually look for now going forward for Aberdeen now they've sort of ticked that box?
Yeah, listen, the European group stage football is great. They go into the Europa League playoff round. If they win, they're in the Europa League groups. If they lose, they're in the Conference League groups. So it gives them a bit of income again. They do need to be careful. You know, a couple of years ago it cost Barry Robson his job. It then cost, you know, I think it was Robbie Nielsen was the Hearts manager who went out. So it can be difficult to marry the two. I think they need to deepen the squad. They've got some good young players there. But they will lose, you know, Dorrington will go back to Tottenham. They will lose some. They're likely losing Ross Doohan to Celtic.
Yep.
So I think they need to bolster the squad a bit. Jimmy Tilleen will get the resources. Dave Cormack spoke again yesterday and promised them the resources to do so. And in essence, the European results, now they're guaranteed the football, the results don't matter as much as the domestic results will matter. They will want to nail themselves down in 3rd place next season.
Well, an incredible high for Aberdeen and a rare, incredible low for Celtic, obviously, not getting the treble over the line. You know, they had chances. There was that Days and Maida one, well saved by Mitov. Engels hit the post, but it certainly wasn't a vintage Celtic performance in any shape or form, I wouldn't say. Do you think there was an element of complacency? Do you think they allowed themselves to believe they'd almost got it over the line before a ball was kicked? Any of that sort of stuff?
No, I'm not. I wouldn't accuse them of complacency. I wouldn't. They didn't play well in the game. They had chances. Jeffrey Sloop hit the bar as well as the chances you were talking about. But they finished the game, you know, no disrespect to any of them, but, you know, Yang, Johnny Kenny up top, I think Greg Taylor finished in the middle of the park. There are still issues, and I know, listen, people will say they spent £25 million to get Engels, Ida and Trusty at the end of the last window, or the summer window I should say. they need reinforcements. They need reinforcements badly. Kieran Tierney, who scored for Arsenal yesterday, will come back in, but Greg Taylor's still to sign a deal. Jeffrey Schlupp's only a loan player. They still look a centre-back short. Even before Rio Hatati's injury, I thought they looked short in the middle of the park. Bernardo came in, McCown's had a go, but I think they need more in there. And with the injury to Jota, again, I think they need something out wide. And Dyson Maida's got 33 goals. He's been absolutely terrific. But he's probably just in the last 3 or 4 weeks just tipped back in terms of form. Ida's got, I think, 20 goals, but there are still question marks over Adam Ida. So I think, and Brendan Rodgers will be the first to tell you this, Celtic have a bit of work to do in the summer transfer window.
That's just going to say there, obviously Rodgers would rather be sitting this morning with a winner's medal to look at, but do you think ultimately with all that you've just been saying there, it's strengthened his case maybe tenfold that he needs those players in the door?
I think he would probably, maybe not publicly, but privately say that this Celtic team is capable of a performance that they showed on Saturday. They can be brilliant highs. You saw the way they played, thinking back to the Kilmarnock game just before the split, and then Dundee United at Tannadice after the split when they sealed the league. 5 goals at Betodjo and what have you. They can be outstanding. But there looks to be that kind of performance in this Celtic team. You saw the defeat at Perth. Calendar year 2024, they lost 2 games, John. They lost to Hearts and they lost to Borussia Dortmund. 2025, they've lost far, far too many games, and that will be troubling Brendan Rodgers.
In terms of players that he's going to still have at his disposal, goalkeeper position, Kasper Schmeichel, obviously, that long spell out, back. Very uncharacteristic, but it was a horrendous mistake from to send that ball into the net. Sinisalo had been in, hardly put a foot wrong. Do you think there's a decision now to be made with that position heading into the new season for Brendan Rodgers?
No, I don't. I think Schmeichel will be nailed on as his number 1. He's got another year on his deal. I thought the first 6 or 8 months of the season Schmeichel was excellent, but around the time, controversy in Denmark over his performances for the national team in March before he got that bad shoulder injury. He then missed a lot of football with the shoulder injury, came back into the team. Now he's made a mistake. It's a poor mistake. I still don't know exactly what he was trying to do at the time when the balls come off his arm and gone into the net. But in isolation, I don't think we can say, people were talking last week, it's great that Craig Gordon's got a new deal at 42 to take him beyond his 43rd birthday. I don't think we can celebrate that and then say Kasper Schmeichel's suddenly gone at 38. I don't think that for a minute. I think Kasper Schmeichel will ponder the mistake it's a poor error. He'll ponder that for a long time because that's the type of person he is. Yep. But I would think when the season starts, Kasper Schmeichel will be Celtic's number 1.
We shall watch and see now. In terms of the next season ahead, we've got another new manager in the Scottish Premiership. Say new manager, very familiar face. Stuart Kettlewell is back in football just a few months after leaving Motherwell. New Kilmarnock manager replacing Derek McInnes. Do you like this appointment?
Yes, I do like it. I like Stuart. I think he's a good manager. It was a kind of strange way he departed Motherwell, stuff about the supporters. If he doesn't like the Motherwell fans, wait till he meets that group behind the home dugout in the rugby park main stand. But it's good that he's back in football. I think, Stevie Frill's going with him again. They've got that basis with Craig Clark and Chris Burke already there. I think it's a good job. I do think it's a good job. I think there are good players there. Obviously, Bobby Wales has departed for Swansea, which is a blow. A bit of compensation money there. There'll be opportunities to add to the squad. Danny Armstrong's going under freedom of contract as well. But I think Stuart and Stephen will have ideas of what they want to do at Kilmarnock. They were bottom 6 this season before Derek left for Hearts. But I think they'll go in believing they can take Killie towards the top 6.
Well, he did have Motherwell in around the top 6 for a large period last season.
I think they were 5th when he left this season.
Yeah, so he's proved that he can do it. Now, just a very quick mention in Rangers, obviously still looking for the new manager, they're still looking for the takeover to be completed, but after last week's Go Ballistic was recorded, they also announced the departures of several big name players, Hadji, Lawrence, Balogun, the 3 that led that way. Were you surprised in any way to see any of those players not offered an extension, or do you think this is just going to be what it is now, clearing the decks to have this sort of completely fresh start?
No, I think Rangers have done the right thing. I think if everyone was fit and you were picking your first choice Rangers team at the end of last season, Balogun might have been in it. I don't think Lawrence or Hadji would be in it. And the new manager, who, as and when he comes in, will want to bring in several players. So I think it made sense. They're all reasonably high earners. So it made sense to kind of clear the boards. Czerny, of course, has gone as well. The two young defenders, Castanwero and Fernandez, have gone. So of all of those players, Czerny was the one perhaps they'll miss the most. But I think Rangers just need to put the pieces together. They need the takeover announced. They need a new manager, whoever it is, announced. And then they need him, along with Kevin Thelwell and the recruitment department, to start pinpointing the players to replace Balogun and Hadji and Lawrence and Czerny. And they all need to be upgrades because they were too far behind Celtic.
Yep, and obviously the Champions League qualifiers not far away at all
22,
now.
I think.
Yep.
Nothing,
And one team who they'll be hoping to meet in the Champions League, not necessarily directly, but already there, are Napoli, of course. Incredible night. Also, a Scottish football show. We've got to talk about this.
Brilliant.
Scott McTominay, Billy Gilmour. McTominay heavily involved again. Incredible scenes there in Naples. How pleased were you to see them get that over the line on Friday?
It was fantastic. I actually shouted out when McTominay scored that terrific scissors kick for 1-0.
Incredible goal.
It was great to see the two of them, go in and play such a pivotal role this season. A dozen goals to McTominay. I think he's the league's MVP. They love him in Naples. They love Gilmour as well. There's pizzas. Pizza recipes made in their honour, some of the street art you see, the two of them,
all sorts.
the whole thing. The Neapolitans have taken them to their hearts, and it's great. It's like kind of tartan takeover of Serie A. I feel like Lewis Ferguson captaining Bologna to the Coppa Italia for the first time, I think 51 years. That's not only Napoli's fourth title in 99 years. These two boys become the first Scots since 1905 to win the Serie A title. It's absolutely fantastic. And it's great for Steve Clarke and for Scotland as well. Sure. And what it does do is, the next guys, a Lennon Miller perhaps, these guys now won't think twice about going overseas and, and embracing something new when they see the success and the career development in the likes of McTominay and the likes of Gilmour and Ferguson as well. It makes you wonder what Man United fans think about letting McTominay go.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I guess now there can be no doubt McTominay at this time is world class. He's playing at a world class level, world class footballer.
Yeah.
Got to say that.
Oh, yeah, he's absolutely fantastic. I think he was the Scottish Football Writers Association International Player of the Year again for his, heroics for the national team, and he'll be crucial. The World Cup qualifier starting in the autumn, he'll be crucial to Steve Clarke.
Didn't fancy some blue hair dye to celebrate
I
it
thought
today?
that looked absolutely ridiculous when they all came back out. I noticed Antonio Conte. I remember Antonio Conte when he had no hair, and now he's got these luscious locks. Notice he didn't put any blue dye in them.
He didn't. Looks like he might be heading out of Naples actually, according to reports.
Yeah, he seemed to have a kind of fractious relationship with De Laurentiis, the president. Who
they all seem to be fair.
Who looks the sort of Dave Cormack of Italy. So it doesn't surprise me.
Just a quick mention. Time of recording, we've got the second leg of the playoff tonight, Ross County Livingston.
Yes.
Look forward to that one. How do you see it going?
Well, listen, Robert Thompson, our colleague, is heading up there. An 8 p.m. kick-off. He reckons we'll have extra time and penalties. It might be right through the night in Dingwall. I said before the first leg that I thought Livi might just have enough to come back up. So I'm going to stick with that. I know Ronnie Hale got that penalty deep into stoppage time. I've just had a feeling about it. It's the third consecutive year Ross County have been in this playoff, and you can't continually finish 11th and expect to save yourself in the playoff. It'll catch up with you eventually, and I just have a feeling tonight might be the night it catches up with them.
We'll be watching that intently. Thanks for now, Roger. You're going to go off, as always, and speak to Kris Boyd.
Yes.
Sure, he'll have quite a lot to say about the cup final result.
I would have thought so.
Yes, I would imagine so. That's Go Ballistic done for the domestic season, but we're not going anywhere. We'll be here next Monday, as always, because there's a small matter of a couple of big Scotland games to look ahead to as well. And Boyd is also going to do his various awards from looking back in the season next Monday as well. But that's next Monday. It's mentioned Roger's going to go and speak to Boyd just now. While Roger gets ready for that, don't forget there's so much content across the YouTube channel, including our one-on-one series with Derek McGregor, which is still going very strong. Award-nominated series, I should say.
Yes.
One-on-one. Most recently, caught up with Peter Grant, the Celtic legend. Here's a little bit of what Peter had to say to Derek.
John Clark. John was at the game. John was a Chapel Hall man. And then John became, obviously, was Big Billy's assistant. So there was a big connection there. They asked me would I sign for Celtic. Obviously, I was only 10, I think, at the time, because, as I say, you didn't get into the boys' club of that till you were 12. And I was privileged that the great Jockstein had asked us to do that. But I think that was with the help of John, and then obviously the gaffer Big Billy, who had done utmost respect for all these guys, John Clark, Billy McNeil, Jockstein. What else can you ask for? You know, the backbone of Celtic, as I would look at, always in my lifetime. And I think the history to come, and the history that's been passed, obviously,
incredible.
They will always be the best. You know, they'll always be the best. So to be asked to sign there with these guys.
Well, during the course of the season in Go Ballistic, I've quite often cut to Ayrshire to speak to Kris Boyd. On occasion, we've gone to the Sky Sports Studios in London to speak to Kris Boyd. But for an end-of-season finale, we're going to Dingwall. You're
Dingwall.
there tonight, Ross County against Livi in the playoff. We'll get to that later on. But first of all, a momentous weekend for another Northern team, Aberdeen, winning that cup final. What did you make of it, Boydie?
Oh, it's a fantastic result. No, I don't think it was the best performance, but I don't think we can criticise teams for trying to go toe to toe with Celtic, and then having a go at them if they get defeated heavily. So I think for Jimmy Tilleen deserves enormous credit in terms of that change of shape, the way that Aberdeen went about their business. I said, look, will it be remembered as a classic game? No, but Aberdeen won't care. It's the first time in silverware for a long, long time, and I think for the start to the season that Aberdeen had, everybody felt as if it was going to be a fantastic season. There was a period, a long period in the middle there where it was really, really, really poor. But to get to the final, to get to semi-final, to get to another final where everybody thought that we were just going to be lambs to the slaughter, but they weren't. And then the disappointment would be finishing fifth in the league. But at the start of the season, if you'd have said, you will win a cup, you'll win the Scottish Cup, because it's been a long, long time since they've been able to get their hands on that. And the scenes in Aberdeen yesterday were fantastic, and deserve it. Well, I think for Celtic, there was maybe an expectation of it was just a matter of turning up and they were going to land another treble, but it wasn't to be. But you've got to give Jimmy Tilleen and Aberdeen a lot of credit for that.
You've had a pop at him a few times this season, just with the kind of slide in league form, as you say, falling to fifth in the Premiership. There was, I think, their last 4 league games. What changed at Hampden on Saturday?
Well, obviously the change of formation, but then, in terms of being able to, just hang in there for as long as the game went on, and there was a couple of chances, but I think you look at Aberdeen, and should it have taken that long to go and win a Scottish Cup from their previous time? No, it shouldn't. There's been times where they should have done a lot better, but take nothing away from them. That Saturday, although it was a typical game against Celtic in terms of they've got all the ball, and you have to suffer quite a bit, but there was little resemblance of the Aberdeen team that we've seen at the start of the season. All in it together. Even when you went behind, it was as if, because it was a cup final. And I think one of the things that's been clear, and I've been very critical of for Aberdeen, is once they've lost 1 goal, it seems to have been 2, it seems to have been 3. They've just given up, basically. But on Saturday, it was the total opposite. It was more like the team that we've seen at the start of the season. Everybody fighting for each other, everybody covering each other, making sure that if somebody got past their teammate, they were there to cover it, getting blocks in. But I think for Aberdeen as a whole, it's been a strange season. I mean, how do you sum it up? The start they got was fantastic, and everybody get carried away, as we said. Then you've had that big long period in the middle, and then to finish fifth, and you're thinking, right, no Europe, then you go and deliver the Scottish Cup. So, I mean, it is a strange season.
They've now beaten pipped Hibs to that third, the Europa League playoff round place.
Yeah.
They'll be guaranteed, even if they lose that, they'll drop into the Conference League groups. They're guaranteed European football at Pittodrie until Christmas. What will that do for Aberdeen next season, and what is the priority? I mean, is Europe the priority, or do they need to cement third place, the third place that they've let slip this season, Boydie?
For Aberdeen to get to that level where they were able to bring in the funds to allow them to get in better players, to at least ask a question of our big two in Scotland. I do think when you look at the start of the season, everybody, it was nailed on, and they've fallen away. But as you say, Roger, they're now guaranteed group stage football. Hibs will be absolutely gutted because the run that they've been on. But listen, that's football. It happens, and you've got to give Aberdeen a lot of credit. Where does it leave them going forward? I think you can, look at it. Obviously got the Europa League playoff, but it's more likely they're going to fall into the conference, and they'll be in it. But for that stability going forward, do you go and bring in players that gives you a bigger squad, and then all of a sudden, there's a change if it doesn't start well next season? And so I think, Aberdeen need to have a clear vision that, the results domestically might take a dip, but there's no reason for Aberdeen, at least, we've seen it with Hearts last year as well, and that was a Hearts team that was underperforming. They came within one game of qualifying for the latter stages or a playoff game, in the conference. So, and I don't think, that's where Aberdeen should be at least looking to. Especially if it's Odger as well.
Will there be excitement below the old firm next season? Will there be excitement, those three big city clubs chasing third? Because Hibs were clear in third this season. They did so well under David Gray. We've spoken about Hearts and the investment that's come for Tony Bloom and Derek McInnes arriving there, and the Jamestown analytics data, to find players. And then Aberdeen now are Scottish Cup holders, and Dave Cormack is going to back Jimmy Tilleen again. It should be a great race for third, fourth and fifth.
Well, it should be, and I think also as well, when you look at our big two, and especially Celtic, they have had it easy for a period of time now, without the ones behind them asking any questions of them. I don't think, it's very early, Roger, right now to actually turn around and say they can, run them close. It should be a lot closer than what it is this year. You'd expect Rangers to strengthen as well, so you would expect them to pull away from, at least the teams that's in third and be closer to Celtic with the investment that's coming there. But, again, you look at, we've spoken about it often enough on this show, you take, and look, Union St Gilloise were able to go and win the Belgian League last night as well. And I'm not saying that Hearts are, it's took them a few years to get there, but it ain't just going to be, a click of the fingers and everything's going to be rosy at Tynecastle as well. There will be a process to go through that will bring in better players that should allow them to go and compete at the top end of the table. But, I think for Scottish football, you look at the investment that's in it now, as you say there, Dave Cormack, listen, he's got a lot of critics, but there's one thing, he spent money. He has spent money, and that's, he spent money, he's got, in terms of even paying managers off, he's had to spend money, but he's backed him as well. So, with that money coming in now, you would expect him to go, and, Aberdeen should be able to go and bring in a few players. For me, I think, in terms of, I've said that Scandinavian market, there's a lot has been the connection with Jimmy Tilleen and that part of the world. I look at Aberdeen and I just always think, that there should be a base of Scottish players there, because they are, and history tells you that, Aberdeen have been able to go and take the best players from other clubs, and more importantly, Roger, they've been able to bring their own through. They've been able to bring their own through, and right now I just don't see that.
You talk about recruitment, you talk about investment in the summer. Does that cup final defeat cement a few things in Brendan Rodgers' mind about what he needs to do in terms of recruitment for Celtic this summer?
Well, I think when you look at, you listened to Brendan a couple of weeks before, and he was saying about having to invest in the squad and get better quality in, and a lot of people would just think it was just paying it lip service, because the season they've had, they were about to win another treble, and everybody thought, you're saying this, and yes, you want to get players in, but you don't really need them as such. But Saturday would have been, a little wake-up call that, if Celtic aren't on it and they're not at the top of their game, and sometimes in one-off games, you can be punished. I know it went to penalties, but you've got to give Aberdeen a lot of credit for actually doing that. And they did. They stopped Celtic's, the flow, their attack. Never really had anything. I don't think Celtic's forward players, I don't think I've seen them struggle as much as what I did at the weekend. But there is no doubt that, now going forward, Brendan Rodgers will want to bring bodies in. He has to. But not only bodies into players into the I don't think he's going to go and sign squad players now. You look at, we don't know what's going to happen with Greg Taylor, but you look at Kieran Tierney, he's going to come into play. So Celtic, you'd imagine, are going to bring in 3 or 4 players that will come into play. Will they sign a striker? Yes, I think they will. I'm still, I'm still not convinced. You know, I don't even think Brendan's convinced either. With, you know, you look at Cameron Carter-Vickers is there, and beside him, you know, we've seen him chop and change a few times this year. Trusty was a big summer signing last year. I think he's done okay. I mean, he's done okay, but, you know, for Celtic, they were probably looking to try and get better in that area as well. I think Liam Scales is another one who's come in and done really well. But Mirovski, where does he stay, or does he move on? So there is positions there where Celtic will look, you know, they will feel as if they can strengthen. You know, if they get best players, they will strengthen stronger in those positions. So, listen, it's a big summer, but there is no doubt it helps Brendan Rodgers been able to convince, you know, the people he needs to at Celtic to, you know, we need to get players in.
Great. That's great. Managerial merry-go-round in the Premiership just now. Rangers still looking for a manager. Dundee looking for a manager after sacking Tony Docherty. Motherwell looking for a manager after Michael Wimmer went back to Germany. Kilmarnock, your old club, they got a boss today. Stuart Kettlewell is back in the Premiership to replace Derek McInnes. A 2-year deal. He was paraded at Rugby Park this afternoon. A good appointment for your old side?
Listen, Roger, I obviously speak to a few Kilmarnock fans, and there's a lot of them maybe not too happy about the appointment. They felt as if they could have got someone else. But I mean, for me, I look at a lot of managers who come into Scotland, and yeah, some of them do well, some of them don't, and you're left to you know, to move them on and the players that come with them. So for me, I think it's a safe appointment. You know, there's no doubt Stuart Kettlewell knows the league. He knows the types of players that can get you success in this league. So for me, I'm not against it. You know, I think that you look at the job he done, well, here at Ross County and even at Motherwell. I thought it was decent. Obviously, it was a bit of a sour ending to his time at Motherwell, but overall, I think Stuart Kettlewell has done reasonably well, considering the you know, what he's had to work with. And, you know, Billy Bowie and the Kilmarnock board, they'll back him. You know, I think that's one thing that nobody can label at Kilmarnock. I think every manager that has been there has been given, you know, the tools to be a success, and Stuart Kettlewell will be no different. Listen, for me, you could have went down a route where, you know, maybe bringing in another foreigner or that, but you know, I look at, you know, Kilmarnock and think, you know, the best times that Kilmarnock have been with, you know, Scottish gaffers as such, and you know, Stuart, I'm not comparing to Steve Clark or even Bobby Williamson and things like that as well. But Jim J, but you look at Stuart, he knows the league. He knows the league, and I think that is key, because, you know, when you're a team like Kilmarnock or Motherwell or things like that, like, and you know, you look at Michael Wimmer came in there, and it took, you know, he had a good start to it, but I mean, you look at Motherwell overall, there wasn't really any improvement. But it took that time for him to actually, you know, to get to know his players and everything. Stuart Kettle will know, you know, all the Kilmarnock players right now. So, you know, it's going to be a big summer for Kilmarnock as well. There's obviously going to be a few players leaving, but having that know-how and that understanding of the league will definitely help Stuart Kettlewell.
Well, something the one for me. Will Kilmarnock benefit? You tend to find, Boydie, because they've all got similar budgets, they all chase the same players in the summer. And if Kilmarnock have got Stuart Kettlewell in as a manager to start chasing those players now, does that give them an advantage over the likes of Motherwell and Dundee, who are still waiting to make appointments?
Yeah, I mean, I think he can get to work right away. You know, as I said, there will be, I'd imagine, a big turnover of players at Kilmarnock. You know, there's a few out of contract. And it's the same every year, isn't it now? You know, that you get to this stage, and I mean, unless you're able to build and you know you're going to be there for a period of time, it's difficult for a manager to come in and you know, get boys tied down in 3-4 year deals now, because there's not really much between a lot of the teams, Roger, and if it goes wrong, then you're left with players on fortunes, you know, and then you know, you're having to cost cut elsewhere and things like that. So I can totally understand the way that football is right now, but you know, the sooner you've got a manager in place, the better. And Kilmarnock have done that. They've got Stuart Kettlewell in. He can get to work now, trying to get players. You know, and then you look at Dundee. They've obviously got that you know, connection with Burnley. They'll have players coming in as well. You know, there's Motherwell. I mean, we spoke about it. You know, loads last year as well. You know, the Motherwell squad was bloated. There's no getting away from it. You know, so they're going to have to trim that for me and maybe add a few bits of quality rather than quantity.
Yeah, rather than 33 or 34 players. Were you surprised at Michael Wimmer's exit? It certainly took a lot of people by a bit of shock, Boyd, at the end of last week.
Well, I mean, again, I was more shocked that he was actually here and he was appointed as the Motherwell manager to start with. I always think when you've got people that come and when they're given an opportunity to go back home or it's, it doesn't seem to be working out the way that they want it to be working out at the club they're at, then no, I mean, I wasn't surprised. I think when somebody comes in, and they're away, pretty quickly, then you're a bit surprised. But if there is offers there, no, I'm not, because even it's down the leagues in Germany, but you'd imagine it'll be, no disrespect to the Scottish game, but in terms of the wages and everything that comes with German football, it's spoken about as one of the best run organisations in the world in terms of the way they go about business. So for him to go back home, and be given an opportunity, as I said, yes, it might be down the leagues, but that pretty much sums up the difference in countries.
Now, I can see you're desperate to get away for some of Roy McGregor's Highland hospitality this afternoon, Boydie, before the game tonight.
I'm absolutely freezing. There you go.
Really? It's nice.
It's got cold. It's got cold. What do I think tonight? I don't know about you. I mean, there wasn't much between. If anything, Roger, I thought Livingston were the better team last week. I thought that, and then they'll feel as if they were hard done by with the penalty kick. It is a penalty at the end. You can't. Danny Wilson, I think, admitted that himself. You can't keep a hold of someone's jersey, Jordan White's jersey, for as long as he did and expect to get away with it, especially with VAR. But I think Davy Martindale have travelled up here and they will fancy their chances. I mean, they've been up here already, the Scottish Cup, and won the game. So they will fancy their chances. But I think Don Cowie needs to get a reaction out his Ross County players tonight. That I thought they were poor for large spells of that game on Thursday, but were able to come away with a draw back home. We've seen it before. The playoffs deliver, and I'm sure tonight will be no different. I just hope it doesn't go to extra time and penalties, because I want down this road.
You never know. Listen, I can recommend the haggis pie, but just one of them, remember, Boydie.
One of them.
I know the season's coming to an end. The
That's
last domestic game tonight. We will be back with Go Ballistic next Monday. We have 2 Scotland games to look forward to, and he doesn't know it yet, but Boydie will be handing out some end of season awards. Take care. Enjoy Dingwall tonight, Boydie.